Mr. Minister, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. It is again a great pleasure to come back to Oslo and to speak at this very seminar. May I first of all join Mr. Prime Minister to congratulate Equinor for the 50-year birthday, a company that we are very happy to work with, a company, one of the leaders of the global energy industry when it comes to security of energy supply and efforts for clean energy transitions. Dear colleagues, 24th of February, we saw very dramatic pictures. Once again, we have remembered those days. It was a very dark day. A week later, 1st of March, we had a press conference, the International Energy Agency, and I said, I remember very well, we are entering the first global energy crisis. The world has experienced energy crisis before, the oil crisis, but this is nothing to compare those crises with the current one. The reason is very simple. The country that invaded Ukraine, Russia, as of 24th of February, it was the #1 top energy exporter of the world. Oil, gas, coal, many of the fossil fuels. And as a result, we are seeing a new energy order coming together with the global energy crisis, and at the same time, a major upheaval of the geopolitics of the world. Here, I would like to, first of all, thank Norway. As somebody who lives in Europe, who lives in Paris, and having an organization with many European governments, I would like to thank Norway for stepping up its exports to Europe at a very difficult time, and once again proving to be a reliable supplier of Europe. Norway showed once again that it is one of the key pillars of the European energy security. So I would like to thank here once again Mr. Prime Minister, the Norwegian government, Equinor, and all those workers who did step up their production and provided energy to Europe. I would also like to thank Norway for its firm stance when it comes to the war in Ukraine. From day one, taking a very clear stance and also supporting Ukraine and Ukrainian people. So very many thanks for that as well. So, dear colleagues, I said we are in the middle of the first global energy crisis. And in this World Energy Outlook, which is freely available in our website and all the data you may want to consult, I asked my colleagues 2 questions, many questions, but I want to highlight 2 of them. One, is this global energy crisis, is it going to slow down or accelerate the clean energy transitions? This is question number 1. Question number 2, which countries are affected in which way from this global energy crisis? I would like to share with you some of the findings of our study here. First of all, we all know that the global energy crisis leads many countries to take some immediate measures which are not in line with the clean energy transition. Mr. Prime Minister mentioned Germany. Germany is using a significant amount of coal now for this winter and maybe for the next winter as well. And here, I would like to say that we shouldn't look at these small and immediate responses, but the big picture. Big picture is the following. Several governments around the world are providing substantial amount of money. These are not statements, government programs, substantial amount of money on the table to accelerate clean energy transitions. One of them is in the United States, Inflation Reduction Act, which is a law now. It puts 400 billion US dollars in terms of tax incentives, subsidies to accelerate the manufacturing of batteries, solar panels, electrolyzers, electric cars, and others. Huge amount of money. And you will see it will transform the US and therefore global energy system very quickly and in a deep way. In Europe, we have Fit for 55 and Repower EU. Again, putting a lot of money on the clean energy technologies. In Japan, we have the green transformation of Japan, again from hydrogen to the new nuclear build. A lot of money coming from Japan. China, India, they are all stepping up their efforts for clean energy transitions. Now, why is this happening? Is it because the countries suddenly remember their climate commitments? No. It is happening for three reasons. This huge amount of money for the clean energy investments. Number one, and by far the most important one, is energy security. In Europe, we are seeing unprecedented growth of renewables. We are going to announce it in about 2 weeks of time, the numbers. We have never seen such a big growth. Solar, wind, and others in many parts of the world. The main reason is energy security. In the US, in China, India, and elsewhere. This is the first reason, energy security of this major transformation. The second one is, of course, the climate commitments. And the third reason is very important to note. Many governments around the world would like to have a pole position in the next chapter of clean energy industry in terms of being a manufacturer of batteries or solar panels or electrolyzers. There is a competition, there will be even a harsher competition between economies who will have a greater share of clean energy technologies in the future. So these three things coming together, namely energy security, climate commitments, and new industrial policies, these three coming together is a very powerful combination. And it is the reason it may sound rather strange, but in the middle of this energy crisis, I am more optimistic about clean energy transitions than I was before, because the money is pouring and the countries understand the importance of clean and secure energies. If I can, I would like to share you with one number. I don't want to bother you with so many numbers, but one number. Today, the world spends, as of today, about $1 trillion for fossil fuels, the investments, and 1.3 trillion for clean energy. And 2030, in a normal way, a normal business as usual case, in 2030, the clean energy investments will go to about $2 trillion US dollars. A big increase here. And compared to what we have expected last year, there is a major increase of 50%. Because, as I said, the real money is pouring in the energy, clean energy investments in the world. Now, from here, I would like to go to a bit on our climate goals. Many countries around the world, more than 100 countries, made towards Glasgow, after Glasgow, commitments, so-called pledges, to reach net zero by 2050. Not all the countries, but many countries. We at the IEA, we look at this. If countries would do what they said they will do in terms of their commitments, what will be the temperature increase in the world? And we end up with a 1.7 degrees Celsius. Of course, there is no guarantee that the countries will do what they say, what they pledge they will do, but this is really encouraging. And this is the job of all of us to make sure that the countries implement what they target. I would like to, however, mention one other issue, a recent discussion that I find very important to address. Namely, a strange and unusual combination of some scientists and some defenders of the existing energy system say that the 1.5 degrees target is dead. I find to write the obituary of 1.5 degrees is very premature, factually very poor, and politically irresponsible. I mentioned to you that in 2030, we will see clean energy investments going from 1.3 today to 2 trillion. To be in line with the 1.5 degree target, that 2 trillion needs to go to close to 4 trillion. A major task, but not impossible. When we look at some of the technologies, for example, solar PV implementation around the world, or batteries for electric cars, their implementation, their installations are very close to 1.5 degree target. Not all technologies, but some of them are going there. So to say that 1.5 degree target is dead, in my view, factually, a very poor assumption. And politically, it is irresponsible, because if we announce that 1.5 degree target is dead, you will also put that 1.7 degree aspirational target also in jeopardy. So from that point of view, I wanted to make clear here that those people who announced that 1.5 degree target to look at the numbers and their statements much more carefully. Coming back to the different countries and how they are affected from the current energy crisis. Let me start with Europe, and then talk a bit on Russia and the developing countries. In terms of Europe, it is a major problem for Europe. Europe has been receiving a lot of gas, oil from Russia, and the current situation may well bring Europe to a recession. Maybe more importantly, European industry, which is the backbone of the European economy, may be suffering substantially in the next years to come as a result of higher costs vis-à-vis its competitors around the world. And Europe will maybe go through this winter with some bruises, social and economic bruises, but there will be another next winter coming. So for Europe, this is something that a lesson to be learned, not to rely on one single country, especially in this case, especially Russia, and not to diversify. For Russia, I see some charts and some thoughts Russian revenues are still high. But this is, dear colleagues, only looking at the current quarter or the next quarters. Russia is losing the energy battle, and big time. First of all, I mentioned Europe had a reliance on Russia, but Russia had a big reliance on Europe. As of 24th of February, 75% of the Russian gas exports went to Europe, and 55% of the Russian oil exports went to Europe. And Europe was and is a very good client, pays the money on time, doesn't get any political problems, and a very well-behaved client. By far the largest client of Russia. And Russia lost this largest client forever. And now Russia has to look other homes to bring its gas or oil. And it is not easy in terms of energy. I mean, we have many energy experts here. A big chunk of the Russian gas is coming to Europe with pipelines. You cannot build pipelines less than 10 years somewhere else. In terms of oil, it is more flexible maybe, but just to give an example, bringing Russian oil to Europe with tankers takes 5 or 6 days. Bringing it to Asia takes about 56, 57 days. Many logistical issues and other problems, putting other problems aside. This is one problem that Russia is facing. And there's another problem. Russia's oil and gas fields, geologically not easy fields. They need a lot of technological care, injection of new technologies. And several international oil field services companies will not be able to operate in Russia, so the production growth in Russia will also face big challenges, leave aside to keep the production at current levels. So as a result of that, we believe Russia's role, I mentioned to you, the top energy exporter of the world, will be much diminished in the future compared to past. The third category I would like to highlight is the developing countries. I mentioned to you that Europe is going through difficult times, European economy. But this is, compared to some developing countries, this is really not as big as the countries, for example, energy importing countries are facing in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. I could give you many numbers, but I want to highlight only one number. Since 20 years at the International Energy Agency, we are following a trend year by year. How many people in the world have no access to electricity? And I want to thank here to NORAD for its support for us carrying out that work. We, in Africa, country by country, how many people have no access to electricity? In the last 20 years, there was a decent trend that people who have no electricity was declining year by year. But this year, 2022, this declining trend is reversing, and there will be more people in 2022 than previous year who have no access to electricity, mainly as a result of the hardship that those countries, those people are experiencing today. And I want to here thank Mr. Prime Minister, who gave an excellent speech in New York during the United Nations, highlighting the issue of access to electricity and clean cooking, and bringing the attention of the world leaders to this very issue. Now, In the last part of my remarks, before going to questions and answers, I would like to highlight one issue discussed a lot: energy security or climate change. Which one we should put more attention to? So first of all, from IEA perspective, we don't need to make a choice here. But in real terms, there is one important fact which none of us can deny: global energy demand will increase, because energy is a good thing. Energy makes our life easier, more productive, more comfortable. Very good. Now, how are we going to meet that global energy demand growth? We have two choices. Number one, today, as I said, we spent $1 for fossil fuels, $1.3 for clean energy investments. If we want to have a world which is in line with our 1.5-degree target, in 2050, this $1.3, making it simple, $1.3 need to go to 8, while we keep the 1 for the fossil fuels. This is one choice. You secure the energy, but at the same time, you reach your climate target. This is one way. On one hand, you have energy security. On the other hand, you have the address your climate change. But there's the other one. You continue to invest as you do today, more or less equal to fossil fuels and clean energy, which means global temperature will increase and we will never meet our climate targets. So this is the choice that we have to make. Are we going to increase the investment in clean energy in big time on one that reaching our climate targets and making sure that our energy supplies are secure, or we are going to continue to see an energy investment mix more or less fossil fuels equal to clean energy investment? This is a choice, and we believe at the IEA that the momentum around the world would favor increasing clean energy investments. Now, if I have to leave you with one optimistic note, Mr. Prime Minister mentioned the next 50 years, but I want to talk, I am older than him, I want to talk about next 10 years. When we look back at this moment, let's say 10 years from now, I believe this year will not be only remembered by the global energy crisis, but at the same time being a turning point in the history of energy for accelerating clean energy transitions. And I am saying this, again, on the basis of data, on the basis of analysis, on the basis of talking with many governments around the world. Today, the driver of clean energy investment is not only climate commitments, climate concerns, but energy security is a powerful driver, and at the same time, the competition among the countries to lead the clean energy industry, the next chapter of global energy industry competition. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.